Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. There's a giant mess behind me and a cat. This is just realistic real life. We didn't do our dinner dishes. That needs to happen. But anyways, I thought, while my kid is still sleeping, which is like almost 9 o'clock in the morning and he's still asleep. I got a sleeper, I'm so blessed. And he still takes naps. Hopefully baby number 2 is the same way. But yeah, I just thought we could come on here and like just have like a little parenting chat. I was gonna call it like a mommy chat, but like I'm sure dads have the same concerns. I know they do because my husband and I are talking about this currently. So dads have the same concerns. But my son will be 3 in July and we are starting to look into sending him to preschools. Which when you get pregnant, like thinking about school isn't always like your first thought. However, like within the first couple of years, like you start thinking, I gotta send this kid to school. Like what school are they going to go to? And for the longest time I said I wanted to send him out to my old school, which is on the other side of town, like a 10-minute drive, which in the whole scheme of thing isn't that bad. I have my shirt on inside out. I thought it felt weird. I slept in it last night. So it don't really matter, but it's not like I went out in public like this. But now that we're getting closer to actually having to send him to school, I'm kind of like, well, like how bad is the main public school? Because like when I was growing up, you never heard anything good about the big public school, because I went to a little country school because we have, what is it? We have like 4, would you call them county schools, like out in the country, and then you have the one main public school like it's in the middle of the city, and that's like the big one. Like where I went, I think I was like one of like 80 some odd kids, and the big public, and that's pretty common school size for like the 4 surrounding little county schools. And then you have the big one in the city, and that one, I mean, is considerably bigger. I don't know how many kids they have per class, but like mine averaged about 100 kids per class, and by senior year with all the dropouts and stuff, like mine was like, had like 89 kids in it or something like that. So I don't know, now we're talking about what preschool to send him to. And my old school system did not offer a preschool. They had a church close by, like close to the neighborhood the school was in, that had preschool, and also had daycare, which I guess would be something to look into possibly, maybe. I mean, I hated going there for daycare, like I hated daycare, but that was like before, like I was like in 1st grade already, so like I'd go there in the morning because my mom had to work early, and then I'd go there after school for a couple of hours because she had to work later, and then she'd pick me up. And I hated daycare. So that's like a big reason why we've made a big push and arrangement to make sure that our son and, you know, our son to be, the one I'm pregnant with, we've just made every strive and possibility we have been able to make sure they don't have to go to daycare. And I know that some people like just don't have an option. I get that. But we tried everything in our power to make sure that our kids don't have to go to daycare, just because I hated daycare so bad when I was a kid. And then I worked daycare a couple of years ago. Actually, I have a whole video on it about why I quit working daycare. And let's just say that was not a job for me. Like it takes a special kind of person to be able to work with toddlers all day long. Granted, the daycare I worked for, this is water from last night. The daycare that I worked for was like a little little in-home daycare, and that place was not ran right. Like, no, it was daycare. I was about to say preschool. No, not preschool, daycare. And it just wasn't, like I was in a classroom with kids ranging from like 6 months old to 5 years old by myself, and the house itself was just done like kind of like a U shape, and so like my boss and her son, who was also like certified to work for the daycare, would be like on the other side of the house if it wasn't his shift. And when I hired in originally, there was a lady who was supposed to be in the room with me, which like most of it happened in her living room and her kitchen. There was this lady that was supposed to be with me to help me, and she was supposed to do babies, and I was supposed to do the older kids, because we mostly had toddlers, and we had like 2 5-year-olds. Was it 2 5-year-olds? I remember there was one 5-year-old with us all the time, and then there was a little girl who would come in after lunch. I think she was about 5 also. Maybe she's a little younger. I don't remember. It's been a couple of years. But yeah, like oh my gosh, that place drove me up the wall. Like one person with all those kids. It wasn't 10 kids. I want to say it was around like 8. But like when you have that big of like age gaps, like everybody has different needs, and it's like I'm so thankful for the experience because I learned so much. I was able to apply to like being a mom because I worked that job during my first trimester with my first pregnancy, and prior to that, like I had 0 experience with children, especially babies. Like I never changed a diaper before. Like I knew nothing. I never made formula. I didn't have a clue, and so I learned so much from that job. So I'm thankful for the experience. However, I very quickly learned after my 3 months working there that I am not cut out to work with little kids. That being said, I used to do substitute teaching at my old school, and I worked with middle school for the most part. I was able to work elementary and middle school because I was only like 19. Like, talk about the blind leading the blind, okay? Like, I don't know why it was set up that if anybody who was 18 or older with a high school diploma could pass a background check, could sign up to be a substitute teacher. But back in like 2009, I graduated high school in the spring of 2009, and in the fall of 2009, I went back to my old high school working as a substitute teacher. And I did it for a couple of years. I loved it. I loved working with the middle schoolers. I think I liked it so much because I was so close in age to them. Like, I understood them. But I loved working with the older kids. And for a while, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And I took early childhood education classes. And that we're going off in a whole different direction here. The whole point of all that is that from being in daycare and working daycare, I hated it. And so we've done everything in our power to make sure that our son doesn't have to go to daycare. And we've definitely made sacrifices. And, you know, I found a job that only works the week that I can work just the weekends. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to work more hours at my job. Like, financially, that would help us so much. Like, we've got, you know, bills and financial goals we like to meet. And like, all of that's just kind of like on the back burner because like, I so badly want to keep my kids at a daycare because I had such, I don't want to say bad experience. It's not like anything bad really happened, but I disliked it so much. I don't want to put my kids in it. But my son's going to be hitting 3 this summer, and he's definitely getting old enough for preschool, and I'm hesitant to put him in it. Like, I feel like he needs it. I feel like he needs the social interaction. Ever since he was a little bitty thing, I would take him to like story time at the library or any activities that the library would run for children his age. And here this last year, anytime I take him, it's just like he can't handle being around other children. Like, here at home, like, he hardly has any tantrums. He knows he's not going to get what he wants when he has tantrums. He plays really well by himself, or he'll want to play with me or my husband. And then you get other kids involved, and it's like he just can't handle it. He doesn't want to share. He doesn't want to play with them. Back last year, before we found out I was pregnant, I was donating plasma, and we had a gym membership, and I would take him to the plasma center. Had like a little supervised play area for children, so he would go there, and I loved the lady who worked that play area. But I can remember, and I didn't think anything of it to begin with. Like, it wasn't until recently that I really started thinking back. But like, anytime I'd go to pick him up from the play area from donating plasma, or if I pick him up from the play area from the gym, like, he was never playing with any other children. Like, he was by himself in a corner playing alone. Like, no interest in playing with others. And I never thought anything of it last year. I don't know, I never thought anything about it. But this past like I'd say 6 months, anytime I take him to any kind of a library event where other kids want to play with him. Like, the library recently started doing a play date and story time, so the kids play for like an hour and then there's half an hour of stories. Like, my kid just has meltdown after meltdown after meltdown when he has to socialize with other children. Like, he doesn't want to play with them, he doesn't want to share with them, he doesn't want to sit with them. Like, he wants nothing to do with other children. Fine with adults, doesn't want to play or interact with other children. And I used to take him to play dates with my cousin's daughter like all the time, but we've kind of quit that here recently for like probably like the last 3-ish months because the weather has been so disgusting. And then like she was like at the very end of her pregnancy, and now she's had her baby, so she's at home a lot, and so like he hasn't gotten to play with his cousin for a while. And we went over to go visit them recently, and it took them a while to start getting along, and they had some spats, mostly brought on by my kid, who just didn't want to play with her and didn't want to share with her. And then at one point he got in trouble because he hit her, and I said, well, if you can't play nice, we'll leave. And he jumps up and runs to the door. He's like, sounds great, let's go. Like, he just doesn't want to interact with other kids. And so I feel like he needs to go to preschool. I feel like like right now here at home, like he is the only child. He doesn't have to share. He, like, everything is his. I play with him, but we play the way that he wants to play. Like, and I think he needs to go to preschool. And so that's something my husband and I are discussing is, you know, what school to send him to. And it's scary, like the idea of him not being with me all the time. The school we're looking into that's the closest to us is a public school, and it's a 5-day-a-week program for half a day. And that just like makes me so nervous. Like, is he at 3 old enough to be gone 5 days a week? Like, I know it's only half day, but like 3 just seems so young to be gone 5 days a week. And I'm sure it's just me like not wanting to let him go. I'm so like used to having him here, and the idea of like not having him with me all the time just like scares me. But I also don't want to like stunt his growth by not letting him go, you know. The other option we have is going to like a private Christian preschool, and we're kind of talking about that as well. They're a little more expensive, but like in the long run, not like drastically. It's like an extra $50, because you're talking like $60 to $50 a month versus like $75 a month. So by the end of the 4 months, like you're talking about paying either $250 or paying $300. So, and the $250, like the public school is like, it's $200 for 4 months, plus you have like a $50 enrollment fee, so like $250. And then the private schools are like $75 a month. But with the private schools, like he would go less because they're only like 2 or 3 days a week, but like you pay more, and it's kind of like, that sucks. Like, you think you pay less if your kid's going less. So I don't know, we're just conflicted on like where to send him. And like I'm worried about like abuse. And you know, my husband said, you know, like when there's like a preschool and kindergarten roundup that's happening next week, which is so crazy to me because I remember them doing that kind of stuff like in the middle of summer when I was in school. They'd round up the kindergartners for the fall. And now we're like middle of February and they're doing kindergarten roundup already for the fall. But like, I'm so worried that like somebody's gonna abuse him. Like you just see things all the time about little kids getting abused who can't say anything. Just today, like I was flipping through Facebook when I woke up this morning, and from my town there's a guy who's been arrested, who worked at a local daycare, and he's being accused of molesting some kids. And a little further down from that article, there's another article from like the main news source for my state, and there was an article again about some guy who molested children. And like it's just, and then under that was one about some mom who killed their child because he wouldn't eat his food or listen. And it just, there's so much crazy in the world, and so it's so hard to like let them go, you know. Like I know I have to, I know like I can't just keep him here. I mean, we could do homeschool, sure, but like that doesn't help with the socialization. Like he needs that socialization. He's just not you know, like I don't want to hold him back. And it's just, it's hard. And I think any other parent out there understands it, especially if you're facing the same thing where you're talking about sending your kid to a preschool or a daycare or anywhere. Like, it's really something you have to take in consideration and like be mindful of. Is like, where are they going? Who are they going to be with? Is it a safe place? Even if you think it's a safe place, like there could still be a creeper there, like you don't know. And not only do I worry about, you know, like him being molested, like I also worry about him being abused in any other way, because it wasn't that long ago, like there was an article from some daycare or preschool that was, it was in a different state, but like the teachers were like having fight club and like making the toddlers fight each other. And there was like actual camera footage of it because of the cameras in the classroom. And my kid, like, he doesn't have the best language skills, which is another thing. Like, I think that if he goes to school, that'll help. But I worry about something happening to him and him not being able to tell me that it happened to him. And then us not being able to, you know, take action, and then like it continuing to happen. And so it's just like, you don't think about these things when you get pregnant, but like when you get closer to time to have to send your kid to school, it's almost like panic mode, because like nobody can take care of them as well as mommy can, okay? Like, you guys get it, I'm sure. But it's just something we're talking about this morning, me and my husband. And I thought I'd come in here and we'd have a little chat about it, because I'm sure there are other mothers out there who are going through the same thing and having the same worries and same stresses, and that are just, you're not ready to let your baby go even if you know that they need it. Like, you know? And it's stressful, like it's worrisome. And I mean, it's always going to be worrisome having to let your kid go, but like, you know, when they're older and have better verbal skills, like you probably feel a little better about it, because you know that they can communicate better and tell you if anything's gone wrong. But I don't know. I guess that's all I wanted to talk about. So definitely, like, feel free to join in the discussion down below. Let me know your thoughts or your opinions. Are you going through the same thing, or like, have you already gone through this? And like, is there any questions that you ask the school? Like, that's another thing, is like, what should I be asking the school when we go to this kindergarten roundup next week? Like, what should we be asking them? You know? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is part of like, am I still considered a first-time mom? I don't know. I mean, with my first child, I'm still learning things as we go with each stage. I mean, when it comes to the new baby when they get here, sure, like I'll have done all this stuff already with my first kid. But with my first kid, like I still feel like a first-time mom in a lot of aspects, because there's things that I've yet to have to deal with. And I think that with your first kid, you're always a first-time mom to an extent, because you haven't done it yet. You're still figuring it out. So, I don't know, it's just, it's kind of nerve-wracking. You're kind of like, ugh. You know, like, what do we do here? You know, my husband and I both feel a little lost with it. A little like, what do we do? What are we doing? Are we doing the right thing? Should we have done it last year? Should we, you know, have sent him to a preschool for 2-year-olds last year? I don't know. It's a live and you learn kind of experience, I guess. But yeah, so definitely leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And yeah, I guess that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.